5 signs you've left the normal human vibration. This is rare. There's a moment on the path, quiet, invisible to others, where something clicks inside you, and suddenly nothing about your old life fits anymore. The foods you used to crave, the conversations you used to tolerate, the people you once danced around to feel accepted, all of it starts to feel like a faded dream. You don't feel superior, you feel misplaced, like you've been rewired. And the truth is, you have. You've crossed a line most people don't even know exists. You've left the normal human vibration. And yes, few talk about this, because it sounds insane to the uninitiated. But if you're here, and if you're listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's not sugarcoat it. This isn't a trend. This isn't a spiritual aesthetic. This is a complete dissolution of your previous identity, a departure from mainstream energetic frequency. And it's rare not because it's impossible, but because it's terrifying. The first sign you've left the normal human vibration is the unbearable awareness of the density around you. It's like you're walking through a dream that everyone else is still sleeping in, but you've become lucid. You see through smiles that don't match the eyes. You feel the lies hanging in the air before a word is spoken. You watch the rituals of daily life, scrolling, gossiping, consuming, and it all seems like a strange, hypnotic dance. You're not judging, you're observing. And that observation becomes painful, because you realize most people are still running on programs. You, however, have begun to operate on presence.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This awareness doesn't come from studying. It doesn't come from reading. It comes from breaking. Something in you collapsed, didn't it? Maybe it was a dark night of the soul. Maybe it was heartbreak so deep it shattered your ego. Maybe it was a sudden spiritual experience that ripped the veil off your eyes. Whatever it was, it initiated you into a new frequency, one that vibrates outside of fear, outside of competition, outside of the illusion of separation. But the moment you stepped into it, you realized something heavy. No one prepared you for what comes next. Because the second sign that you've left the human vibration is the loneliness, the deep, echoing silence that follows awakening. You're surrounded by people, but no longer connected in the same way. The conversations you once enjoyed now feel draining. The places you once found comfort in now feel foreign. You try to explain what you're feeling, but words betray you. You talk about energy, and they laugh. You talk about alignment, and they roll their eyes. And part of you starts to question your own sanity. Why can't you just go back? Why can't you just blend in again? But here's the truth: you're not supposed to. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to shift reality. And that can't be done by operating at the same frequency as the collective. That's why the universe pulled you out. That's why the breakdowns happened. That's why the things you once loved began to fall apart. You were never meant to stay in the old vibration. You were meant to evolve. But evolution, real evolution, costs everything that isn't real. And that's where most people stop. They cling to their identity, their comfort, their roles. But you let it all go, even when it hurt, even when it left you empty. And that's how you began to rise. The third sign is the shift in perception. Time doesn't move the same way for you anymore. Days feel like lifetimes. Synchronicities become the new language of your path. Numbers, symbols, dreams, they start guiding you more than logic ever did. You start to feel the interconnectedness of everything. You walk into nature and it speaks to you. You touch someone's hand and feel their pain. You close your eyes and see visions that don't belong to this world. And again, you wonder, am I losing it? But no, you're gaining it. You're gaining access to the multidimensional layers of reality that were always there but hidden beneath the veil of ego and conditioning. And with this new perception comes a new responsibility. That's the fourth sign. You can no longer ignore your intuition. You can no longer do things that aren't aligned. Your body revolts. Your spirit resists. You're being pulled by something higher now, your soul. And it doesn't care about convenience. It doesn't care about approval. It only cares about truth. You start shedding everything that isn't aligned: jobs, relationships, habits, thought patterns. It's not out of rebellion, it's out of resonance. Your frequency is rising, and everything that can't match it begins to fall away. Not because you're better, but because you're becoming authentic. And authenticity is magnetic, but also deeply disruptive to the illusions people cling to. And then comes the fifth sign, the sense of mission. Not a career, not a role. A soulful knowing that you are here for something greater. A feeling that you carry a key, a code, a frequency that this world desperately needs. You may not know what it is yet. You may not know how to express it, but it burns inside you. It wakes you up at 3:33 a.m. It floods your heart when you meditate. It whispers to you when you're alone. You're here for a reason, and that reason is not in your resume. It's in your being, your energy, your presence, your vibration. Let me ask you something now, something that goes beyond words. When you sit in silence, no distractions, no noise, do you feel that ancient presence within you stirring? That part of you that remembers, even if your mind forgets. What if that part of you has always been waiting for this exact moment, this exact message, to finally awaken fully? You've left the normal human vibration, and that's not a diagnosis. That's a destiny. The invisible shift, when reality bends because of your energy. You might not even realize it at first. It sneaks in quietly, like a change in the wind before a storm. You're going about your day, interacting with people, walking through your usual routines, but something is undeniably different. The world isn't responding to you in the same way. People are either magnetized to you or suddenly repelled. Objects you think about start to appear. Conversations line up with your thoughts before you even speak. And time begins to ripple, stretch, bend. You're not imagining it. This is the invisible shift. The moment when your vibration becomes so elevated, so sovereign, that reality itself begins to reorganize around your energy. This is not about ego. This is not about control. It's about presence. You've crossed a vibrational threshold that very few ever reach. And now, the external world has no choice but to mirror your internal frequency. It's like you've become the tuning fork. When you walk into a room, the energy adjusts. When you think deeply about something, it manifests. It's not because you've learned some secret technique. It's because you've become the energy of alignment itself. You've stopped forcing and started being. And that shift, subtle, powerful, irreversible, is what separates those who are still dreaming from those who are now dreaming awake. But let's get real for a moment. This shift isn't always comfortable. In fact, it can feel disorienting at first, because the old rules no longer apply. The cause and effect logic you were taught doesn't work the same way. You might try to explain this to someone, and they'll look at you like you've lost your grip on reality. But deep down, you know you haven't lost your mind. You've found your essence. And from this place of essence, reality becomes malleable. It stops being a fixed structure and starts acting like a living organism, constantly responding to your vibration, your thoughts, your clarity, or your confusion. That's why your inner world matters more than ever now. What you allow into your mind, what you speak, what you believe, these things shape your outer world in near real time. You've stepped beyond the collective delay most people live in. For them, manifestation takes months, years. For you, it's becoming instant, not because you're special, but because you're aligned. You're in resonance with the deeper mechanics of the universe, and it's no longer just responding to your actions, it's echoing your essence. And here's where things get even more mystical. You start to notice patterns that no one else sees. The same numbers appear over and over. Animals cross your path with messages. A song plays that answers a question you just asked in your mind. The veil between the seen and unseen is thinner now. You're receiving signs, symbols, and synchronicities at a pace that feels almost supernatural. But it's not magic, it's alignment. You've tuned into the hidden language of the universe, and it's speaking to you fluently because you finally listen without filters. But let me ask you something deeper. If your energy is bending reality, and the universe is responding to your vibration, then what responsibility comes with that power? What are you now choosing to emit into the world? Because this shift is not just about personal evolution. It's about energetic stewardship. You are now a transmitter. Every thought, every feeling, every intention ripples outward. You're not just creating your life, you're subtly influencing the collective field. So how do you want to use that power? This is the moment where the dark chosen ones, the awakened few, must ask themselves, am I here just to escape suffering, or am I here to become a beacon? Am I willing to embody truth, even when it costs me comfort? Because when reality bends for you, when you start living in quantum alignment, you cannot afford to live unconsciously. The universe no longer gives you the luxury of denial. It holds you accountable to your vibration. And that's not punishment, it's empowerment. You are being trusted with sacred influence. And yes, it can be lonely, because those around you might not understand what's happening. They'll still be operating in delay while you're living in real-time manifestation. They'll think you're lucky, or strange, or too intense. But what they don't see is the inner work, the shadow integration. The nights you cried on the bathroom floor, breaking open so that the light could get in. They don't see the sacrifices, the deaths and rebirths. All they see is the glow, but you know what it took to get here. So now you walk differently. You speak less, but your energy says everything. You don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you allow. You don't convince, you embody. Your life is no longer about proving anything, it's about radiating truth. And as you continue to rise, the world will either shift with you or fall away. Let it. Because your path isn't about being understood, it's about being aligned. You've entered the realm of energetic mastery. You've become a living reminder that we were never meant to be bound by the old laws of fear and lack. You're evidence that when a soul remembers who they are, the whole universe responds. The shift you feel is not fiction. It's your initiation. It's your return to the original frequency, one not corrupted by conditioning but coded in divine intelligence. This is what happens when you leave the normal human vibration. Reality bends, not because you demand it, but because you become one with the source that creates it. Unseen forces, why you're now interacting with dimensions most never touch. There comes a point in your spiritual evolution when the veil between dimensions doesn't just thin, it begins to dissolve entirely. You don't plan for it. You don't chase it. It simply begins to happen because your vibration has reached a level where the material and the immaterial no longer feel like opposites. They feel like layers. And you're no longer stuck in the outermost surface. You're moving between realms, often without even realizing it. You're feeling things that have no physical source. You're receiving insights that your logical mind could never invent. You're interacting with presences that no one else in the room can sense. And it's not imagination, it's attunement. At this stage, you become a tuning fork for frequencies that most humans have forgotten how to perceive. And the more you surrender to this expanded state, the more these unseen forces begin to reveal themselves. Guides, ancestors, energies, archetypes, symbols, they begin to move through your reality like a second language. You hear them in silence. You feel them in your body. You see them in the patterns that repeat with such precision they defy coincidence. These aren't hallucinations. They're communications. You've stepped into a realm where the universe no longer whispers, it speaks clearly, because now you're ready to listen without fear. For most people, this would be terrifying, and at times, even for you, it might be. Because how do you explain that you felt a shift in energy before someone entered a room? That you saw a color around them that wasn't visible, but unmistakably there? That you woke up with a message in your heart that didn't come from a dream, but from somewhere far older and wiser? The truth is, you can't explain it to those who haven't experienced it. And you don't need to, because this isn't about convincing anyone. This is about becoming a bridge between dimensions, a translator of energies, a living conduit for the unseen. And yet, with this gift comes a responsibility. You have to learn discernment. Not every voice is truth. Not every signal is divine. There are layers within layers within layers. Some energies will try to mimic light. Some will feed off your attention. You must learn to feel the texture of frequency, to sense the motive behind the message, to know when your ego is being baited and when your soul is being guided. This is why inner purification becomes not just helpful, but essential. Because the clearer your vessel, the cleaner your channel. Your intuition is no longer just a feeling, it's your compass across realms. Have you noticed that you're dreaming differently? That your dreams are no longer random nonsense, but full of codes, symbols, initiations? That you wake up with insights that feel ancient, like they didn't come from your mind but from some place older? That's because your consciousness is now operating beyond linear time. You're leaving the human template of past, present, future, and entering the spiral of truth, where everything exists at once. You're starting to remember lives you've never lived in this body, but your soul knows them. You're starting to speak words you've never studied, but your spirit remembers the vibration. This is why isolation becomes sacred. Not because you're antisocial, but because your energy field is now sensitive to distortion. Crowds feel like static. Surface level talk feels like noise. You crave silence, not for rest, but for reception, because you're downloading constantly. You're being fed information, visions, knowledge that cannot be found in any book. And your job is not to hoard it, it's to embody it. You are the message now. You are the living scripture. But let me ask you something from the depths of your soul. What if the invisible is more real than the visible? What if your entire life has been shaped not by what you could see, but by what has always moved behind the scenes? And now that you can feel it, what will you do with that knowing? Because that's the real threshold, not just sensing the unseen, but working with it, co-creating with it, trusting it enough to follow it when it defies logic. You are now in communion with a realm that most fear because they can't control it. But you've begun to dance with it, and that dance is what makes you rare. You're not escaping reality, you're expanding it. And with each step, you're becoming more than human. The quantum self, how to live when you're no longer bound by time or form. By now, something in you has changed so completely that the old ways of living no longer work. You've crossed an invisible line, and there's no going back. What you once thought was reality, linear time, fixed identity, cause-end effect logic, it's all crumbling. Not as a loss, but as a liberation. Because you're beginning to understand something that few ever do. You are no longer just a person moving through time. You are the field in which time moves. You are the space in which reality is shaped. You are the quantum self. This isn't a metaphor. It's a shift in identity. You've moved beyond the illusion of form. You're starting to feel yourself as energy, as awareness, as infinite potential wrapped loosely in a temporary body. You no longer see yourself as a name, a role, a personality. You are presence. You are frequency. You are the observer and the observed. And it's not about dissociating from life, it's about expanding your consciousness until life becomes something you create in every moment, not something that happens to you. Living as the quantum self means stepping out of time, not in some sci-fi way, but in a deeply embodied, mystical way. You begin to notice that what you feel now creates what you experience next. That your inner world is a preview of your external world. Reality no longer feels rigid, it feels responsive. You're not waiting for signs anymore. You are the sign. You don't chase outcomes, you align with frequencies. You live like a tuning fork, vibrating in harmony with your highest timeline and letting the rest fall away. But here's what no one tells you. This level of freedom demands radical self-responsibility. No more blame, no more victimhood. You can't play small and live quantum at the same time. You can't cling to the past and expect to move freely through the now. The quantum self doesn't ask, "What should I do?" It knows because it listens to the field, not the fear. Every decision becomes a matter of frequency. Does this expand me or contract me? Does this align with the truth of who I am becoming or the identity I've outgrown? The people in your life might not understand this. You'll speak from your soul and they'll hear confusion. You'll move based on energy and they'll call it impulsive. But you can't explain a multidimensional life to someone who still lives in a single timeline. You're not here to convince. You're here to embody. Your life becomes the transmission. Your alignment becomes the message. And those who are ready will feel it. Without words, without logic, just resonance. And yes, it's lonely sometimes, because few live at this frequency. But the solitude is sacred. In that silence, you start to feel your true self emerge, not the one shaped by culture or trauma, but the one that existed before the programming. You feel yourself as pure consciousness, choosing this human experience as a vehicle of expression, not as a limitation, but as a tool. You're not trying to escape the body. You're learning to infuse it with divinity, to bring spirit into matter, to collapse the illusion of separation between the seen and the unseen. Let me ask you something to end this journey. If you fully remembered that you are not a being moving through time, but a timeless field creating itself in every moment, how would you live? What would you stop waiting for? Who would you stop pretending to be? This is the quantum way, not a philosophy, a frequency, a way of being that honors the eternal, even in the temporary, that sees through illusion but still loves the world, that walks through time without being bound by it. You are not a human trying to be spiritual. You are the spirit that chose to play human, and now you remember. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your true existence as a limitless, multidimensional, quantum being. You've left the normal human vibration. You've stepped into the field. And now, the question is no longer what is real. It's what do you choose to create next?